there's an interesting book that Stephen Carter, who's a law professor at Yale, wrote
That's the
called
second theory, right.
Violence of Peace. And so Carter says exactly what Anthony just said. He said there was amazingly little, and he was a friend of Obama's, amazingly little difference between Obama and Bush. Why? And so this is what he writes. He said, it might be that Obama the insider, meaning as president, has realized what Obama the outsider did not. Whatever the mistakes of his predecessor, President Bush acted out of a belief in the urgency of the threat facing the nation. The threat was neither invented nor imagined, but is instead out there in the world. And so Obama every day gets one of these terrifying intelligence briefings and suddenly thinks, oh, it's worse than I realized.
And that's what I also hear is true. I hear from friends who are very close to the administration, the president, and the White House, that he was very much captured by the intelligence community, that they put the fear of God, quite literally, in him with these daily terrorist briefings and national security briefings. And I think there we have to be mindful of the fact that we would want our executive branch and our president to be very skeptical, not because he doesn't want the intelligence communities to do their job and do it well, but you want someone who's going to be very probing and make them ensure that they go back and do their homework twice or thrice if necessary. And I will also go a step further. I mean, I've met the president twice only, once in a private meeting that was rather extended, and once just a very casual
And did you tax him with this stuff?
Oh, we clashed.
Yeah.
We clashed. I was summoned to the White House. I can tell the story because if anyone broke protocol, it was the White House broke protocol by telling some of these stories in two books, in Jody Cantor's book, The Obamas,
sure.
and Daniel Kleinman's book. And it was billed as, he wants to hear from outside the bubble.
And this was when? What year was this?
Oh, it was about 2 years after he was first in office.
Okay.
And we were told we were brought in to give him an outside perspective. We were brought in to be put in line. And it was pretty clear that it was less about him hearing us and more about us hearing him. And he was really quite piqued that some of the criticisms we had made, even at that early point, he thought were unfair and would be best left unsaid or muted. And I think in the end, there's a certain arrogance, and I say that with all due respect to the office of the president and to a man I voted for, that he thinks himself to be best to make these hard decisions. That certainly the burden of the responsibility falls on his shoulders. And certainly he has, the buck stops with him in every quintessential way. But the idea that, therefore, he is then best situated to make these hard calls, I find it astonishing, for instance. This is where I can only get to the arrogance factor. That the New York Times ran this great big expose about the drone program, the very first article that came out, where unnamed White House sources talked about the kill list, what we call the kill list, how they identify whom to target with unmanned drones for execution, either near the battlefield or off the battlefield, like in Yemen. And in the New York Times, you hear this story about how the president himself would agonize over the dossiers of who would be on these kill lists, said high-named White House source. I found that chilling. You know, in most of my studies of American history, we work very hard to make sure that the president's fingerprints are never on dossiers that our covert agencies decide who should be
Wait, I'm sorry,
executed.
Is it better or worse that his view is if we're going to kill somebody, I as the president have to take responsibility for that?
I think it's a level of, you have to let the processes of government with a robust series of checks and balances, the cabinet of rivals who will fight each other, who will give you the best decisions and recommendations rather than you making the decisions.
So this would be like LBJ picking at bombing targets in Vietnam.